from NBC News, and I kind of want to talk more about Marjorie Taylor Greene saying that they control the weather. And of course, the media put they in quotes, but first, this is really important. Milton has intensified into a Category 5 hurricane. Massive surge warning. So before we get into the more political nature of what the story is, I just want to say, please heed the warnings from local law enforcement. Look, you got Ron DeSantis out there. He's been doing a great job with Helene. Now Milton coming through. He's done really well. I mean, relative to these other states. Take it seriously. I know we got a handful of our friends who are saying they're going to stay there, but they're not on the west side of Florida. It's going to be serious. But this story has many people questioning. Listen, this has never happened before. Right before an election, two swing states and a major Republican stronghold get slammed, but not by one hurricane, but two hurricanes. And what they're saying of this Hurricane Milton is unprecedented. So when they announced Milton, they said it may strengthen to a hurricane and then hit Florida. Then I see the next update. It's looking like it'll be a major hurricane. They were saying maybe it will be a Category 3. Then this morning they said it's a Category 3. It may actually get to the point where it becomes a 4 or a 5. We will see. 2 hours later, they're like, it's a 4.
It's a yeah.
2 hours later, it's a 5. Yeah. Now they're saying it's even crazier. So here's what ends up happening. Several days ago, Marjorie Taylor Greene tweets out, and I'll show you. She says, this is a map of hurricane-affected areas with an overlay of electoral map by political party. Shows how hurricane devastation could affect the election. And do they have her other tweet in here? She tweeted something saying, yes, they can control the weather. That's obvious. Now, it's true. Governments, corporations, special interests have the ability to manipulate weather to a certain degree. That is, we've got cloud seeding. We saw this story recently in, I think it was where, the Emirates or Dubai. There was major flooding. It was Dubai.
It's Dubai. Major
flooding because their cloud seeding operation was too good. So they were spraying some potassium derivative or some compound in the air, which basically causes the moisture to start condensing around the particles, and then it makes rain, and then that rain falls because there's moisture in the air basically all the time. So this is basically what Marjorie Taylor Greene is trying to imply. With this, it looks like she's trying to imply that Republican strongholds are being destroyed by a hurricane that was the government or deep states doing, I guess. I mean, look, Marjorie Taylor Greene saying that, you know, the government or special interests can control the weather and then showing Republican areas being slammed by this is making the insinuation that the weather is being controlled. But I do want to pull this tweet up here from Noah Berggren. He is a meteorologist on Fox 35 Orlando, and he says 8 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. This is nothing short of astronomical. I'm at a loss for words to meteorologically describe to you the storm's small eye and intensity. 897 MB pressure with 180 miles per hour max, sustained winds and gusts 200 miles per hour. This is now the fourth strongest hurricane ever recorded by pressure on this side of the world. The eye is tiny at nearly 3.8 miles wide. This hurricane is nearing the mathematical limit of what Earth's atmosphere over this ocean's water can produce. So, look, I don't know if you want to believe that this is government action, but I don't believe the government can make the most powerful hurricane ever. Or whoever, I don't know. Do you guys think that HARP is firing radio waves or something?
Allow me to put on my tinfoil hat. And back in the 60s, they were doing this, and I explained this earlier. We were talking about, but Ben Livingston was a guy who was running. He was a weather guy, and then they put him into Vietnam and said, "Hey, make weather happen. We want to bomb the Ho Chi Minh Trail with rain. We want to take it out." So they were in the 60s. They were doing this. He's called the father of weather weapons, and that was just using cloud seeding. Now we know that if you've seen some of these radar things where they show the Doppler radar areas that are out there. And they'll show a map of just a bunch of circles, boom, 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 and they're pulsing almost. And you can see this over and over again in these videos with these storms. And what that is, and this is my opinion, that these Doppler radar stations have a dual purpose. One is to see where the weather is, but the other thing is to put out ionizing radiation. And then you have HARP, which is up, and there's HARPs in other countries too. These antenna arrays that are heating the ionosphere. And the theory is by doing that, they can maneuver large areas with weather. And then you have the space lasers that Marjorie Taylor Greene is talking about. Well, she posted a video. One of her tweets was a video, I think it's Michio Kaku, talking about how we shoot lasers at weather systems to move them around.
So I can speak a little bit to that because this has been a cloud seeding technique. Germany was famous for, going back for a little while, using infrared lasers for cloud seeding purposes to excite molecules and then cause them to act in certain ways or whatever, to move them, to condense them, to make rain. I don't know about making a hurricane, though. I mean, that's well, unless you're saying it's been like 60 years of development and these weather weapons have been massively strengthened. Or
there's patents to steer hurricanes.
How do I look that up?
Look that up. People have been posting on
I think you're just a crazy conspiracy theorist,
well,
and obviously this is climate change.
No, totally.
Environment.
If we give Al Gore money, they'll all go away.
Isn't it amazing how no matter what, it's always the thing that helps
Did you find
left?
it?
Yes. Hurricane and tornado control device, method for controlling hurricanes, and application 20080047480 proposes a giant machine and method of operation to control hurricanes. I don't believe it means these machines are viable. Well, a patent of someone having one is just...
That's true. That's true. Who is the guy? Terrence Howard has a lot of patents, but what have they done?
Right.
I'm obviously joking. I just know that.
But that patent's from the 40s, I think. It's old.
40s?
Yeah, it's old. It's not. I don't think it's new. And they've been working on this. They put out guidebooks where they were going into hurricanes and seeding them. And another video I saw, this guy was tracking these and I think they're weather monitoring planes. But he said these same planes also have the ability to do cloud seeding. And maybe they're just running cloud seeding planes through there, beefing up this hurricane, and then hitting it with other things. I don't know. I don't know the technology.
To what end, though? Because they want Florida to not have good voter turnout?
To cause chaos. Yeah, to cause chaos. Because maybe, hey, if you hit it in the center of the state where it's mostly red, you don't have anything going in Miami's safe. That's where your Democrat strongholds are. Jacksonville's safe. The Panhandle's already been slammed, which is, that's Matt Gaetz country.
Right.
So you go through Tampa, that's pretty much taken
I saw a ton of people posting about how this is, it's not that this never happens, but it's a very unusual
convenient
path.
Yeah, it seems very convenient right now. And this hurricane, it doesn't really go, they don't go from Mexico over into Florida. They usually go that way.
It's extremely wild and rare, as I hear, for a hurricane to form in the Gulf and then move northeast. Right.
Yeah. And that's, and it's supposed to hit part of Mexico.
It is right now.
Bounce off.
So currently the radar shows it over Merida, Yucatan Peninsula, I believe.
Yeah.
So it is getting slammed.
It's also worse. It's also worse if there's a high tide because it's supposed to hit Wednesday. You got to see when the high tide is because that makes the storm even worse.
Is it really bad for me to say I hope it veers south?
What, to Cuba?
Well, I mean, because if it turns south right now, it'll slam into the Yucatan and just wipe out a bunch of poor people living in these areas. It's not all poor people. And if it heads southeast, it'll slam into Cuba. And so it's I hope it stays where it is and fizzles out, I guess, which is not likely going to be the case considering the water is warm and it's fueling the hurricane.
Right. And if they can make these things stronger, then you would also think they can make them weaker. If the government has this power, which we don't know if they do. We seem to think they do. I seem to think they do.
No, I don't think that that's the case.
You think it's just stronger?
Just because you can start something doesn't mean you can stop it. They can smash atoms, but once that chain reaction started, they're not stopping it.
That's true.
So I don't think that the logic
Bill says they only invested in one direction.
It goes one way.
I mean, the thing that for argument's sake, I think cloud seeding does work. Right, it worked over Dubai,
it absolutely has worked. It's been around for 100 years.
So they do have cloud seeding, and so that actually is a technology that exists, but I don't think that I've heard of anything that can undo the cloud seeding or I've never heard of anything that can stop rain that's started.
Didn't Trump ask about nuking a hurricane during his administration or whatever?
Yeah.
It would do nothing.
He said
it would just add radiation to the storm.
Just go around. He did say something during his inaugural address, though. He talked about releasing the technology to the masses, and he's apparently seen behind the curtain, and there's a lot of talk about his granddad, I guess, or his uncle went into the Tesla factory. Yeah. So there's this thought that maybe he knows about this technology that's sitting in warehouses like the Ark of the Covenant, in the end of Indiana Jones, and he's going to open them up. He's going to open these things up, and then now we have free energy generators for every house.
I can't believe that those books from the 1800s. What are they about Baron Trump? Who wrote Ingersoll Lockwood? That's that's a hoax. There's no way that's real. You know about these books?
I've heard of it. Yeah.
Yeah, like these books apparently.
Because I thought when I saw that, I'm like, that's got to be a hoax.
It's got to be a hoax. Apparently, these books were written in the 1800s, and one of them talks about Baron Trump becoming like president, and then leftist anarchist hordes storm his castle on Fifth Avenue in New York. I'm like, this is fake.
I haven't heard Baron talk. Have you heard him talk?
Didn't he say something recently? I don't know.
No, he's just going to NYU. No one's been able to get him talking. I did see a video of a guy pretending to be Baron Trump at a bar to like impress girls, which I think is kind of funny.
I heard from
there's a Wikipedia on Baron Trump novels.
Yeah, I know. And like, what is it? Ingersoll Lockwood?
Yep.
Yeah, the novels appear to be real. And
Travels and
have been published way
Adventures of
before.
Little Baron Trump and His Wonderful Dog Bulger in 1889. The sequel, Baron Trump's Marvelous Underground Journey in 1893.
I don't believe it. I still don't believe it. Because what do they even talk about in Ingersoll Lockwood? Do they mention the Baron Trump novels?
Yeah, when you find Ingersoll Lockwood, if you Google his name, Wikipedia has his.
It remained obscure until 2017 when AI wrote them.
It says they remained obscure until 2017 when they received media attention for perceived similarities between their protagonist and U.S. President Donald Trump. Yeah, because in like the third book, here, let me read it. It says, in July 2017, the books were rediscovered on internet forum users and then by media who pointed out similarities between Trump. Jaime Fuller wrote in Politico that Baron Trump's precocious, restless, and prone to get in trouble. He often mentions his massive brain and as a personalized insult for most people he meets. Fuller also notes that Baron Trump lives in a building named after himself, Castle Trump, while the real-life Trump has lived in Trump Tower for decades. Furthermore, Trump's youngest son, his name is Baron Trump. And Donald Trump used the pseudonym John Barron in the 80s. Chris Rayota noted in Newsweek that Baron Trump's adventures begin in Russia. Rayota also mentioned another book of Lockwood's 1900 or The Last President, in which New York City is riven by protests following the shocking victory of a populist candidate in the 1896 presidential election, who brings on the downfall of the American Republic. The emergence of the novels has led to some groups claiming that it suggested that Donald and/or Barron had engaged in time travel. This was often accompanied by claims that John G. Trump, a scientist and uncle of Donald, had created a time machine alongside Nikola Tesla. I wish! Please be true.
And it's fan fiction at its finest.
I mean, dude, life is so boring. I mean, it's like not really boring. You go outside, it's beautiful. There's birds, they're pooping. There's crickets jumping around. We're having fun. Chickens be yelling. But everybody wants adventure and they want more and they want to believe this stuff. So I'm going to live in the reality where John G. Trump seizes Nikola Tesla's secret equipment, makes a time machine, goes back in time, has a kid. It's Trump's uncle or whatever who tells him this is what you're going to do. And then Trump's doing it.
All right, hands him the manuscript to Inglewood. Here you go. Write this.
No, Ingersoll Lockwood is Barron.
Oh, that's even better.
No, I don't know.
Well, now we need one of those like side-by-side face comparisons of this guy and Baron Trump. Like,
Barron went back in time too far. He went back to, 1863, and he was like, no, we've gone too far, uncle. Now we'll never go do what we were going to do in the past. What were they doing in the past anyway? I don't have no idea.
they have to tell us later. It's not for us to know right now.
I'm sorry. Like, the idea that Trump or Barron or someone went back in time is just, why? What are you going to the 1800s for?
I don't believe the
America
fantastic
was great then.
stuff.
That's right. That's right.
I don't believe the fantastic stuff, but like he was appointed in 1862, he was appointed to counsel the Kingdom of Hanover by Abraham Lincoln. I assume there would be some kind of document. Ingersoll Lockwood. He was appointed to counsel the Kingdom of Hanover by Abraham Lincoln. So I assume that there would be some kind of documentation if it was an official act of the government.
Yep.
So, at the very least, it seems like. And honestly, if it seems like this is true, and honestly, it's not like Wikipedia doesn't have a leftist bent. So anything that if this wasn't a real guy, and there was even a whiff of fabrication
to fact check somewhere.
Yeah, I imagine they would just be like, oh, get it out of here, because there are people that work on Wikipedia that absolutely hate the right. They're very, very far left, and they have done some creative editing to some of the posts and stuff, the entries to benefit or to make the left look more appealing.
Right, there's a bias to their editors. Yeah, for sure. I am not. It's hard to totally accept like, well, they would just make the hurricane bad because of chaos for me right now. I think in part because they suffer too. Like North Carolina getting hit by a bad hurricane, and obviously this one is like a little weirder in its path and stuff. It's got a Democratic governor. And so unless you're trying to, like, if you were to tell me, like, they're doing it to disrupt the election, I'd be like, okay, that's a direct motivation. But chaos for chaos's sake seems like it would lead to risking a certain amount of power that I feel like you would need, especially for someone who already is in the know about the hurricane seeding technology.
You sound like you're drinking fluoridated water.
Maybe so. No, I am totally kidding about the climate change things, though. What bothers me about all of this is that was the main thing people were interested in. I mean, the media immediately jumped to see how important it is that we talk about climate change as soon as Helene hit.
Well, they do that with any storm. That's
any storm ever. And really, it's like, sure, you can say that that's great, but then shouldn't you also be mad that we're shipping money overseas?
So there's good news, and it's that Milton is actually going to slam into Tizimin, Merida, around Cancun, in Mexico, or is that Belize? I don't know what these countries are, in the Yucatan Peninsula, and so it will weaken just a little bit. I'm kidding on that being good news, but it's kind of a difficult thing to say, right? We don't want the hurricane to hit us full force. So it benefits Americans that people in the Yucatan Peninsula are being slammed by a Category 5 because the landmass will actually weaken the hurricane a little bit. And by the time it passes through, it will drop down to a 4 as it approaches Florida and then ultimately slam into Tampa as a Category 3.
That's a wild path, though.
Look at, isn't this crazy? Yeah. It's like, it's hooking every projection model is like, oh yeah, Florida, you're screwed.
Yeah.
Like you are getting
there's nothing going like it's just going to run into Cuba. Nothing.
Nope. It's coming right for us. That's wild.
And they're already getting rain, so it's softening up the ground. I think, I think that's a big reason why all the states, Georgia and North Carolina and Tennessee, they were getting rained on before the hurricane hit.
Yeah, from a different weather system.
Yeah, so you got saturated ground. That's why you had all these mudslides. It had the 24 inches or so just come by itself. Might not have been as bad, but you already had, it was primed,
right?
You could say.
And they're already. I mean, I've watched videos of people, who live in Florida and their house is flooded during Helene. They're like, we're beginning the remediation process, and now they're just going to get hit again. I mean, it means that every emergency resource, any kind of recovery effort, either is going to get literally washed away, or it's going to have to go on pause, which means that all kinds of displaced Americans have to just kind of hang out and wait and see how many more hurricanes are going to hit before they can finally return to their lives.
I think the damage to Florida is going to be massive. And it's what we're seeing in North Carolina and Georgia is horrifying. Roads just no longer existing. And we got this tweet from Marco Rubio. He says, several years ago, I asked NHC Atlantic to show me what the worst case storm hitting Florida would look like. What they showed me back then is almost identical to the Milton forecast now. 8 to 12 foot storm surges in Tampa, 5 to 10 at Charlotte Harbor, 4 to 7 at Chokoloskee, and the Keys are going to get 1 to 3 feet. That's wild, man. Tampa is going to get flattened by this. This is just it's crazy to see. So I hope everybody's taking this seriously. Whatever it is. People were begging us to move to Florida, and I was just like, guys, I don't want to move to Florida, right? Because you got rain and it's hot. But I do want to say this. We have a lot of friends in Florida. So for those of you who are members over at timcast.com, I thank you for your membership. And if you are not, you should be. So everybody should go over to Timcast, click Join Us, become a member, because membership is what makes the show operate. And without members, we can't do what we do. That being said, you may have noticed in the past week, our members show were laggy, cutting in and out. This is because Hurricane Helene caused serious damage to Rumble. They are in the area. And this means they need our support more than ever. So we're going to keep doing our best to maintain our members-only show, which will be coming up at 10 p.m. Please join us there. They're a lot of fun. They're uncensored, not so family-friendly, but always funny. And this means that we're having issues with the player. Rumble is working as hard as they can to get everything working. Our website, we use Rumble infrastructure. We use Parallel Economy, which is Rumble and Dan Bongino's payment processor, because we believe in creating businesses and sustaining them to fracture the control of the hegemonic censorship industrial complex. Chris Pavlovsky of Rumble had a really great post where he said, this election is going to be a lot harder for them to censor because you've got X, you've got Rumble. And that is true. And you've got parallel economy for payment processing. So please bear with us and with everybody else when this storm is going to cause us delays and disruptions to our show, even up here in West Virginia. And so, that being said, everybody is getting hit by this, and we gotta deal with it. So I hope you all are willing to do so.
One of the positives is the last hurricane did deposit a lot of sand in that area, and they're actually using that sand now to make sandbags, which, you don't have to dig it out of the ocean. It's right there. It's piled up.
And it's almost helping clear sand that got deposited, too.
Right, yeah. So
Like the water washed sand?
Oh, there's sand mounds everywhere. It's like the dunes now. Like you look at some of these there's parking lots and where hotels used to be, and there's just giant, it's beautiful white sand, that white crystal sand that's all over.
It all gets carried by the water, but then the water leaves.
And then it leaves and the sand's still there.
I saw the mud, which is crazy because I don't think people realize, the water washes in and it's full of mud. When the water starts going down, the dirt stays, the water evaporates or drains, and then you get 2 feet of mud, which is absolutely insane.
Thanks for watching this clip from Timcast IRL. Make sure to check out the live show Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. on this channel. Subscribe, and we'll see you all there.